Okay. Good morning. I'm going to, the course is Introduction to Population Studies, and the course lecturer are Professor Suleiman Eliaminu Suleiman Mohammed, Dr. Idris Bash, and Mama Matu Samuel. We are going to take the course for this section. So today we are going to look at the Introduction to Population Studies. Now, the study of population is important today, and we are trying to look at the changes. What are the changes profile of human population? You know, human population has gone through changes for this period of time. Now, this course, Introduction to Population Study, is not only studied by sociology or psychology. Geography are interested, public health are interested, and a lot of people are interested in what happens to human population. Now, what happens to human population? What are the trends? What are the changes that occurs in human population? Now, population issues touches public conscience. It makes public, it creates awareness to the public about the quality of the physical and the social environment. Now, we're interested in look at, okay, the population, then what is the quality of the social and the physical environment? Now, the population of the world has continued to grow in large number, and when you have growth, when the population continue to increase, we also have changes, we also have issues that comes along with populations. We also have issues that comes along with the increase in human population. We also have issues, we also have pattern. We're looking at the pattern of growth and other issues that are interested in the population. Now, let me say this. Now, in this class, we are going to use this concept interchangeably, whether it's population studies, whether it's demography. Now, demography is more common with the British. You know, the British use the concept, they use that terminology, demography. While in America, they use the concept population studies. So whether we use population studies, whether we use demography, we are still saying revolve around the whole thing. Now, the demography, the founding father of demographic in the sense of this word was John Grown. John Grown, in his natural and political observation on the Bill of Mortality published in 1662. Now, John Grown is the father of demography. Now, this word demography was coming from two Greek words. Demo means people, and graphia means to study or to write. That means it is what? It is the study of the people. Now, demography are interested in the study of the people. Now, what is population study or what is demography? Now, let's give it. We have several definitions, but for this class, let's look at the basic definition of demography. Whether we call it demography, whether we call it population study. Demography is the scientific study of human population. We said it's the scientific. That means it is not done haphazardly. It has gone through the process. It is organized. So it is the scientific study of human population. Now, it's not just the scientific study of human population, it is also include its size of the population, size of human population. It is also interested in the distribution and composition of the population. Now, what is the population made up of? The age, the ethnic groups, the sex composition, the age composition, the ethnic composition. And now that means demography is the scientific study of human population, including its size, distribution, composition, and the factors that determines the changes Now, what are the factors that determine the changing? We are trying to look at these factors. We are looking at fertility. We are looking at mortality. We are looking at, that means we are looking at birth and death, because they affect the size, the distribution, and composition of the population. Now, from the definition, demography focuses on 5 aspects of human population. Now, we are interested in 5 aspects of human population. We are interested in the size. We are also interested in the distribution. We are also interested in the composition. What is the population made up? And we are also interested in the population dynamics, the changes, the trend. What are the changes over time? And we are also interested in the socio-economic determinants and consequences of the population changes. Now, let's look at what are those scopes of population study. The scope of population study, or the scope of demography. What are the area of coverage? What are those areas that demographers are interested? What are those areas that demographers are interested to study? Now, the first one is that the demographers are interested in studying the size, examination of the size of the population. Remember, we said we are interested in 5 aspects of the population: the size, the composition, and the structure. So the scope, the population study is interested in the size of the population, the number of people in the population. Now, number of people in Kefi, number of people in Kaduna, number of people in Abuja. So we are interested in every population. This is the population. What are the number of people in that population? Now, we are also interested in the distribution. Now, the distribution, we are talking about the arrangement of the population in the space at a given time. The arrangement of the population at a space in a given time. So we are also interested in whether the population is densely, whether the population is sparsely within the population. So we are interested in the distribution. Now, this distribution at a given period of time. Now, the distribution can be according to sex, can be according to age, and the distribution can be growth or a decline. Can be growth or a decline, and the change in the population over time. So we are interested in all this. Now, what are the major objectives of demography? Now, the major objective of demography, or the major objective of population study. Now, the first one is to ascertain the size of the human population, the composition, and the distribution of population in a given time. So we are interested in ascertaining the size, the population, and the distribution of the population. The size, the composition, the distribution of the population in a given area. Now, we are also interested in observing, measuring, and describing the changes. Observing, measuring, and describing the changes in size, composition, and distribution over time. So we are also interested in observing, measuring, and describing the processes. Now, when we talk about the processes, we are talking about fertility, birth. We are talking about mortality, death. We are talking about migration, people moving from one place to other, people moving from one area to the other, people moving from one country to the other. Then we are also interested in marriage. We are also interested in social mobility. Now, so demographers are interested in measuring, observing, and describing processes. And these processes are fertility, birth, mortality, death, migration, and social mobility. Now, we are trying to look at the changes that goes through this. So we are also interested. Now, another objective is that we are interested in analyzing the determinants and the consequences of such changes. Okay, if there are changes, what are the determining factors? What are those factors responsible for these changes? And what are those consequences? What are the implications of those changes? Now, if you have a large population, what will happen? Increase in crime, there will be accommodation problem, there will be trafficking, there will be conjunction and all that. So now, as demographers, we are interested in analyzing the determinants and the consequences of these changes. Now, these are the determinant factor, but now these are the consequences, these are the implications. If you have this determine the population, this determine the size, this determine the composition, this determine the distribution. But we are also interested in looking at what will be the consequences, what will be the implication of what? The increase in the size, implication of the maybe a decrease or increase in the size, the composition and the distribution. Now this mostly you'll be asked this question: is demography a science? Is population study a science? Now, before studying whether demography is a science, it is necessary to know what is science is and to what extent the characteristics of science are applicable to demography. Now, what is science? Science is a systematic body of knowledge attainable by observation and experimentation. Attainable by what? Now, some people said science is an organized body of knowledge. We said it is an organized, systematic, organized body of knowledge. Systematic body of knowledge, and it has to be done through observation and experimentation. Now, let's look at, for any discipline to be a science, now for any course, for any area of specialization to be a science, it must possess some features. Now, let's look at some of these features. Now, it must be a systematized body of knowledge. That means it is a knowledge that has to go through system, through process. It is not done haphazardly. It has to go through process. It is not done haphazardly. Then it must have its own laws and theories. Now, for anything to be science, it must have its own laws and theories. Laws and theory. Another one is that they can be tested by observation and experimentation. They can be tested by observation and experimentation. Now, another key feature is that they can be what? They can make prediction. They can make prediction. Okay, prediction about, okay, this is what will be. This will be. This is how it's going to be. Now, another quality of science is that they can be self-corrective. Self-corrective. That means even there are mistakes, they can be corrected. Then they also have universal validity. Universal validity. Now, so we said that for a discipline to be a science, it must be systematic body of knowledge. It must have its own laws and theories. It must be tested by observations and experimentation. It must make prediction, and it must be what? Self-corrective. And also it has universal validity. Demography possesses all the above. Now, what are those the above elements of science? That it is systematic. So demography is systematic. It's a systematized body of knowledge. Now, demography has its own laws and theories. Now, you talk about Malthus's theory, you talk about Marxist theory of population. So now it has its own theory. Then it must be tested and it must tested by observation and experiment. Then it must they have predictions about human population. Now, then it must also have what? Self-corrective. And it is also what? It also have universal validity. Now, with all these elements mentioned, demography have this. Demography possess this element. It is a systematic knowledge. It has laws and theory. It has prediction. It has universal validity. It is self-corrective, and it is observed through it is attainable through observations and experimentations. Now, let's look at why is demography important. Now, the importance of demography. Now, demography is important for economic. Now, when you know the population, you can make economic policies for the development, policies for the growth of the people. Then for society, now no society exists without planning. So policies implementation. Now having to know about the population of the study, you'll be able to implement policies that have significant impact on the society. It also has economic planning. Now for economic planning, for you to have a good economic plan, now the problem we have with this country is that we don't have database, and databases are critical for planning. Databases are critical for the development of a nation. Now for you to have a better and a good economic planning, there must be what? Data. You must know the population of people. Then what about the political system? The politicians are also interested in the number of votes, the number of people, and the number of votes they are going to get from a specific area. Now population, they are interested in the population of human beings. They are interested in the population of human beings. Now remember we said that in the course of this conversation we look at, now what is population study? We said it is the scientific study of human population. Now looking at the size, the distribution, and the composition. Now we are also interested in looking at, now if this composition, now we are interested in looking at the five aspects of human population, which is the size, the composition, the distribution, the dynamics, the changes, and the socio-economic determinant. And we're also interested that, okay, if there is a population growth or if there is a population decline, what will be the implication on human population? What will be the consequence on human population changes? Now if this happens, what will be? Then in the course of this conversation we also talk about that the population study has scopes. Now the scopes has to do with the size, the distribution, and the composition of human society. Then we said there are also objectives of doing this. Now we are interested in attaining the size, the composition, the distribution of the population in a given area. We are also interested in observing and measuring the determinant, the changes in compositions, the changes in size, composition, and distribution over time. Then we are also interested in measuring, observing, measuring, and describing the processes. Now the processes of population, we say the fertility, mortality, migration, and social mobility. Then we are also interested in the determinants and the consequences of such changes. Ladies and gentlemen, now you can now see that demography is a science. Now demography is a science because it possesses the same element that science does. Now systematized body of knowledge, it has its own rules, it can be tested by observations and experimentation. Now it can make predictions, this is what will happen, and it is also what self-corrective, and it also have economic universality. Now we look at the importance. We also said that we use demographic data for economic planning, for society, for economic planning, for administrator, and for political system. Thank you. We see you in the next class.